So I just finished watching Return to Tomorrow. This was an episode that really took me by surprise. The idea of this one is, of course, the Enterprise is going around and they encounter something bizarre out in the universe. This time it is a planet that is a planet that's very similar to Earth, or at least it used to be. Its atmosphere gave out like a million years ago and everybody's dead on it. Until they hear a voice. And this is where I first started growing. I was like, oh, no, not another godlike alien race that we have to encounter with telepathy and far superior power to the Enterprise. Frankly, I'm sick of those episodes. None of them have really been that good to begin with. And they're just kind of annoying after a while. But I was wrong. It does turn out, yes, this is one of these superior intellectual races. But they go down to this planet and they find that this race has become extinct. All but for, at first, one member is all we see. And his consciousness is collected into this ball. And I have to say, actually, the prop that they used for it looked really cool. It was this neat little pedestal with a design that reminded me very much of a sanddial with a globe on top, and it glowed when he spoke. Cool idea. People rip on the show for the low-budget special effects and the props and stuff. This is one time that it actually looks really, really good. I thought it was a cool concept. So anyway, they talk to this character, Sargon is his name, and it turns out that he is not here to mess with Kirk and the Enterprise crew. Alright, I'm like this. But I'm still a little skeptical, because that's what we've seen before. We've seen, maybe we don't trust these people or stuff like that. Turns out he needs their help. That's a huge change. So I'm happy about that. And what he needs them to help with is to build new bodies. There are a few members of his race left, and he wants to build new android bodies so they can continue to live. Because the rest of them are all contained in these little globes. And there's kind of this melancholy type scene where they go into this room, and there's a wall of all these globes, and there's only like a couple of them that are still glowing. That was kind of sad. They didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, and I was glad that it wasn't a dragged out scene or anything. It got to the point, it did it well, and it got out. Sargon has gone into Kirk's body at this point, and the concept is that they need the human bodies to build these robots for them, because their own consciousness is far superior to our own. That if they were to just tell the engineers how to build these bodies, the engineers would not be able to do it. I was like, hey, you know what? That's a good question right there, and why don't you do that? So that made sense to me. The episode gets really interesting when we start dealing with the different crew members who now have these new entities inside them. And Spock is one of them, Kirk is another, and they've introduced a new character just for this episode to do that with. I liked it. It worked really, really well. First of all, the acting. Getting to see William Shatner do something a little bit different, and he, as Sargon, played this big, over-the-top character, and they did effects on his voice so it echoed and had reverb and everything like that. It was fun, but he really played it up. And then the one that got into Spock's body was actually the villain, and that was fun to see Leonard Nimoy get to really stretch his legs, so to speak, not play always the serious Spock. And I know we have seen stuff like the Mirror Mirror episode, but even then he was still playing Spock. It was just an evil version of Spock. Here, it was a completely different character, and he had this smirk on his face the whole time, and he would lean up against the wall, and things of that nature. Worked really well. I was digging it. So, the plot begins to really develop from there, and it brings up some really interesting points about power and responsibility, and it has a really great ending to it with lots of twists going on. My big issue with this is the continuity. We just got done not too long ago with a whole episode devoted to androids. I'm referring to I, Mud. While yes, it was a more hysterical episode, it's still part of the story. Whether or not you do it funny or a serious episode, it's still part of the story. why didn't they take these entities in a little globe, go back to that planet, and stick them in these android bodies? Even if there was a reason why they couldn't, my big issue is that it wasn't brought up at all. And that's just a storytelling piece that I don't feel these episodes are connected from episode to episode. Again, like I've said before, this is due mostly to the production of the 1960s. Serials like that didn't really exist on television. So, I can kind of forgive that, but it would have been nice. It would have been like, hey, remember not too long ago when we ran into Harry Mudd and how crazy that dude was and their whole planet of friggin' androids? Let's go there. So, that was about the only down part to this episode. I really like this one. It had some great philosophical questions to bring up. The acting was so much fun. And the general sense of it was great. It was a nice refresher that we didn't see a rehashing of the old godlike aliens. And in fact, yes, they were intellectually superior to the Enterprise crew. They still needed the Enterprise crew to help them out. Really, really great idea. So that's all I really have to say about this episode. I'm probably going to grind out one more episode today because I know I'm behind schedule from where I need to be. And I think, honestly, that has to do with what I was bringing up before with the continuity and more the serial aspect. I don't have this overlying drive, I guess is the best word to use, to see what happens next, like I do with other episodes of other shows. I remember watching stuff like Battlestar Galactica, and oh my gosh, you could sit down and watch 12 episodes in a row because you had to find out what happened next. They left you on these big cliffhangers. Or stuff like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, especially the later seasons that really get into these great episodic storylines. Dollhouse was another one that I just couldn't stop watching it. You know, just what happens next? What happens next? I'm not getting that with this. I'm enjoying the show, but I don't have this craving to see what happens next. Now, I expect I will get that way once we get to Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, which, from what I understand, have more of that style. A lot of to be continues, the story arc going from season to season sort of thing. So anyway, I'm going to keep pushing through this stuff. One thing that helps out is you guys commenting, sending me emails, encouragement, passing this around. I want to know that other people are getting interested in this and that I'm not just wasting my time. So, that's all I'm going to talk about, guys, and I will see you later.